Welcome back, Dark Tube family, to another terrifying tale where the unknown lurks just beyond the veil of reality. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our spine-chilling stories. Tonight's tale is about a couple, their dream Valentine's getaway, and a hotel that hides a dark and deadly secret. Let's dive into the horrors of the Crimson Haven. It was Valentine's Day, and for Emma and Chris, this day was supposed to be unforgettable, a celebration of their love, away from the distractions of everyday life. After a week of careful planning, they had chosen the Crimson Haven, a luxurious, secluded hotel tucked away in the countryside. It was the perfect spot, quiet, elegant, and romantic. They drove for hours, finally reaching the hotel as the sun dipped below the horizon. It had the kind of old-world charm that felt like stepping back in time. The building was tall and grand, with stone walls and an eerie beauty that would have felt unsettling if it weren't so majestic. The receptionist was polite but distant, almost too polite. Her smile was too perfect, her eyes too cold. She handed them the key without a word and led them to their suite, saying that they were the only guests in the hotel that evening. The hallway was eerily silent, as if the hotel were holding its breath. But Chris brushed it off, trying to keep the mood light. Emma didn't share his optimism. There was something off about this place. Their suite was breathtaking, large with heavy velvet curtains, antique furniture, and a massive four-poster bed. Yet, as they stepped inside, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The air was unnervingly cold, and there were no sounds, not even the hum of a heater. The room felt empty, despite all the lavish decorations. Chris tried to lighten the mood by suggesting they go to the hotel bar for a drink. They walked down the long, quiet hallway, the floorboards creaking underfoot. At the bar, the bartender was an older man with an unsettling smile. He addressed them by name as soon as they sat down, though they hadn't given him their details. "You're in for a memorable night," he said, his voice a little too deep. Emma smiled weakly, feeling the hairs on the back of her neck rise. They returned to their room after a few drinks, trying to shake the strange feeling that had taken over. Emma. As they entered, the temperature dropped even further. Chris joked about the old hotel, but Emma felt something much more sinister in the air. The whispers began then. At first, it was subtle, a low hum, as if the walls themselves were breathing. Emma turned to Chris, her voice trembling. "Do you hear that?" But he shook his head, dismissing her concerns as nothing more than nerves. As the evening wore on, Emma started to feel even more strange. She could hear footsteps in the hallway, but when she checked, there was no one there. The lights flickered for a moment, and she saw a shadow pass by the window. She looked at Chris, who was busy fiddling with his phone, unaware of the creeping dread. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the room, though all the windows were sealed. Emma felt the chill seep into her bones, and her breath began to come in shallow gasps. Her chest tightened as if someone was standing directly behind her. She turned quickly, but no one was there. A soft voice, almost a whisper, echoed in her ears. "You shouldn't be here." Emma felt a sharp pain in her chest, like a weight pressing down on her heart. She gasped for air, clutching her chest. "Chris, something's wrong. Something's wrong." She collapsed onto the bed, her body trembling uncontrollably. Chris rushed to her side, but as he reached for her, the door slammed shut with a force that rattled the room. Panic rose in Chris's chest as he struggled to open it, but it was locked from the outside. The whispers grew louder, and Emma's breaths became shallow. Her eyes were wide, filled with terror. She pointed toward the mirror, her finger trembling. In that moment, Chris felt a chill wash over him. He turned to the mirror where Emma's reflection was twisted in horror. The glass began to crack. Emma's body went limp in his arms, her face frozen in a grotesque expression of fear. Her eyes stared blankly at the mirror, now shattered. The room was deathly silent, except for the faint sound of breathing. But it wasn't Emma's. It was coming from behind him. Chris spun around, his heart racing, but there was nothing there. No one. Nothing except the room's unsettling stillness. Then, a figure appeared in the broken mirror, a dark, distorted shape, its face a grotesque mask of suffering and rage. The figure seemed to stare right at him, its eyes hollow, empty. Panicking, Chris finally managed to break the door open and rushed out into the hallway. But the hallway had changed. It stretched endlessly in both directions. Doors opened to rooms that weren't there, and the faint sound of distant screams echoed from the walls. He could hear Emma's voice calling his name, but when he turned around, no one was there. Chris began to realize that the Crimson Haven wasn't just an old hotel. It was built on a cursed ground, a place where the souls of the dead roamed, waiting for their next victim. Each year on Valentine's Day, a couple would vanish without a trace, their fates sealed by the ancient spirits that haunted the hotel. As Chris ran out of the hotel, he glanced back. The Crimson Haven was no longer there. The building, the lights, and the eerie atmosphere had all disappeared, as if it had never existed at all. He never spoke of that night again, but years later, he discovered that every couple who had stayed in that hotel on Valentine's Day met the same fate. All of them. If you ever find yourself at a secluded hotel on this dark day, remember, some places are better left undiscovered. And remember, Dark Tube is always here to bring you more stories of the unknown. So if you've enjoyed tonight's tale, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Until next time, stay safe and always keep the lights on.